Hi, I'm Julie Muir and I'm a full-time celebrant based in Newcastle and the Hunter. And I am super passionate about helping celebrants grow sustainable businesses. And I'm here to talk to you about some common mistakes that lots of new celebrants make. I'm going to share with you what I've learned from my own experience and from talking to tons of other celebrants, but obviously it's just my own opinion. Take on board whatever you find useful, but basically these are the things that I wish I had known when I was starting out. Number one, thinking that it is the best job in the world. Okay, so I'm being a bit tongue-in-cheek, of course. There is no doubt that being a celebrant is an amazing job, but is it the best job in the world? Well, I'm going to let you figure that one out for yourself. Lots of celebrants certainly do think so. They often use the hashtag best job in the world on their social media, which makes me chuckle a little bit. Being a celebrant involves being there on the happiest stage of people's lives, no doubt. More than that, we're so lucky that our work is meaningful and we get to contribute positively to our community. But it is naive to think that being a celebrant is all roses. It is not without its own business pressures. So I really want you to enter into this profession with your eyes wide open. I remember when I first started my Celebrant business, I was so excited, like I'm sure you are. My brain was popping with ideas and I was chomping at the bit to get through my to-do lists. But before long, I was overwhelmed and, I realized that I had to do everything in my business. There's no marketing department, no IT department to turn to, no legal department to lean on. And, you are it. And there are a million different aspects to juggle. So it's important to remember that the goal is to build a sustainable business. It's definitely a marathon and not a sprint. So some things that I want you to think about. What are your personal brand values? How do you work best? How much time and energy do you want to give to your business? What do you need the work to give you back so that you feel satisfied? And what does success mean for you? So my advice is that it's really, really important to define success for yourself. You should have financial goals, of course, but there should also be other metrics by which you define success. And if you write them down, what success looks like for you, then you'll be in a much better position to answer if celebrancy is indeed the best job in the world. Now, number two, pricing yourself too low. Yes, we all have different variables to consider, including our own running costs, and the lifestyle that we want to maintain. I'm sure you know that we aren't allowed to price fix, but that doesn't mean that we can't talk about pricing strategies with our colleagues. So it is a universal truth that if you ask nearly any celebrant their biggest regret or biggest learning, they will inevitably say that they priced themselves too low at the start. Most of us thought that we needed to do our first few weddings at a ridiculously low price or even for free, guilty, in order to get our start in this industry. And I'm here to advise you that you don't. I want to acknowledge that, of course, there is a balance to be found. Like, I get it. You are building your reputation. You're mad to get experience. You really want that review, the photos, and you'll basically do anything for it. I get it. Maybe what's also going through your head is that you want to charge a price that reflects your lack of experience. So yeah, I get it. But consider this. You also don't want to disrespect your new celebrant colleagues by ridiculously undercutting the going rates either. We all deserve to make a living, and charging ridiculously low prices, even as a new celebrant, devalues our whole industry. Now, I'm not going to tell you what to charge, but I'm going to warn you again. You are probably going to price yourself too low for your first few weddings, and you don't have to. So have a think about that when you send your first 20 quotes. Number 3, thinking you want to marry everybody. So in other words, and not understanding the importance of developing a personal brand and attracting your target market. Look, when I became qualified, newly qualified, I would have married anyone. I was so keen to perform weddings. And even when I got more experienced, I was still happy basically to marry anyone. You know, I see myself as a facilitator, and I pride myself on being someone who's pretty adaptable and adept at working with any type of person. So, you know, I couldn't really ever imagine having a sales meeting with a couple and then turning them down or saying that I didn't want to work with them. But now I actually would. Not because I've got too big for my boots, but if I genuinely feel that we aren't a good fit, then I'll happily redirect them to one of the other celebrants I know, near me who's a better fit for the couple. For example, look, I'm not really into marble, so I'll happily pass on a quirky couple like that onto another celebrant, if I think they're going to get on better or have more of a similar sense of humor. So my advice is to do the work to get to know yourself, your values, your skills, and what types of ceremonies you actually enjoy doing. And then you need to do the work to create your ideal client avatar. So your ideal client is a profile of a very specific type of person in your target audience. And once you identify what makes your ideal client tick, their values and their challenges, then you can connect with them, through your marketing. You're probably worried that there aren't enough of your type of ideal client, but you're probably wrong. So, just so we're on the same page, these are the things I want you to think about when you think of your ideal client. What age they are, where they live, their professions, how many hours they work, if they've been married before, if they have kids, what level of education they have, their income, who's paying for the wedding, what's the most important part of the day for them, how long maybe between when they get engaged and when they get married, how do they spend their free time, what magazines do they read, what blogs, what apps do they use, what platforms are they on, and very importantly, their pain points, what frustrates them in wedding planning. So the goal is to work with the overall goal is to, work with your ideal client as often as you can, or every weekend, or whenever you're doing a wedding, because that is what is going to make you feel excited and love your job and be thrilled to be in the wedding industry every day for the foreseeable future. Okay. Number 4, thinking that everyone is your competition, getting comparisonitis or imposter syndrome. So if you are thinking that all other celebrants in your area are your competition, you may need to adjust your mindset. Look, I acknowledge that we are all working in a very saturated market. Sometimes I actually feel like being a celebrant is nearly as common as being a barista these days. It's like the new trendy profession. It's true that not all celebrants can make a livable wage, and many celebrants struggle to take their business full time. The average number of weddings per celebrant in Australia is shockingly low. They probably didn't. Sorry, scrap that. I'm only doing this in one take. I'm going to keep going. Celebrant Anthony Cribus, and he ran some numbers recently, and I believe what he figured out is that every one of us should be doing about 8 or 9 weddings a year, which is, surprisingly low. So it's not enough just to be a good celebrant. You have to obviously be business savvy too. So I guess what I'm saying is, despite all this, so despite it being very competitive and very saturated, despite all this, that is true. But despite this, it's important not to enter the market with a scarcity or overly competitive mindset. While other celebrants are technically our competition, remember that they're also the closest thing that we have to colleagues. You're going to need to build relationships with other celebrants just as much or even more than with other wedding vendors. You're going to rely on your Celebrant colleagues for information, advice, support, and for referrals. So try not to see them as the enemy. We work in a service-based industry, and you can only book 1 or 2 or very occasionally 3 weddings in a day. So while you might not get booked first, think of it like a champagne tower. The bubbles will flow down and you will get booked eventually. I want you to be wary of comparisonitis, especially on social media. It's very easy to fall into this trap. You know, it's great to follow other celebrants for inspiration, but if it's affecting your mental health or you feel tempted to copy them, unfollow. You know, remember to stay in your own lane and remind yourself that you are unique. Every celebrant brings their own unique skill set and experience to the job. So stop comparing yourself to others. Be wary of imposter syndrome too. If you've ever felt like you're in over your head at work, you're certainly not alone. It's a very common experience, and the data shows it's especially true for women to feel insecure or unworthy or even afraid. Many celebrants go through this sort of universal career anxiety. It's totally normal. You know, the most important thing is to recognize it and then to push those little voices that are holding you back to the back of your mind and just push them out of your mind. You know, there is a great TED talk on strategies for dealing with imposter syndrome, and I recommend that you watch it. So get out there, make some celly buddies. It's probably the best thing that you can do for your business. Now, number 5. Map out your process and use email templates. So the biggest mistake is not mapping out your process or using email templates. So firstly, using email templates. You know, maybe this one is super duper obvious, but just in case you haven't thought about it, you know, one of the first things you should do is write a series of email templates that you can copy and paste from Word, or even better, store in your email server as a template. Not only is this going to save you a ton of time, so that you aren't writing the same thing over and over and over again to different clients, but more importantly, it's going to force you to really think about your process. So as your business grows, it's going to really quickly become completely unmanageable if you don't have a clearly defined process. Consistency is key. So basically, you need to think about all the information that's going to pass between you and your couples, and you need to think about how you're going to give and receive that information. So I like to categorize it. So the information that passes between you and your couples can happen in many ways. For example, by phone, in emails, of course, in your meetings. You might have a client portal. You might have a couples resource kit. You might pass them links to your website. You might have client questionnaires. At the rehearsal, you might swap more information, and even through your socials. So think about you know, when and how you're going to transfer information, and some information you'll need to give twice. So you might mention something important in a meeting and then follow up with it in an email. So the thing is, I could literally talk about process all day. Today, I just want to remind you that it's important to start mapping it all out. And as well, you need to revisit it and update your process regularly. As you grow and learn, so too will your processes. Having a process, it's so important because it's going to help you feel more in control, less overwhelmed, and it's also going to ensure a better client experience. So get on it. Number 6, waiting too long to get a CRM. Now, CRM, a customer relationship management system. So if you don't know, it's basically the software that you use to run your business. Now, just to be clear, as a celebrant, you do not have to have a CRM. You know, I married nearly 250 couples without one, just by using a mostly kind of paper-based system in conjunction with some tools like Calendly for setting appointments and Google Calendar. But predominantly, I basically just had manila folders for each couple, and everything I needed to know was sort of on a cover sheet and then contained in the folder. Me personally, I'm particularly process driven. I'm very structured in my approach and very consistent with my customer journey. So there was actually nothing wrong with my based system. So I never really felt the need to change anything. I rarely made mistakes because I was very, very diligent. So like, for example, when I got an email, or a payment, I would always, get out the folder, tick it off on the cover sheet. And I always knew exactly where I was up to with each client just by glancing at the file. I was actually a lot more in control of my couples than many other celebrants I knew who had CRMs. However, eventually I realized that while there was nothing wrong with my current system, I wasn't being as efficient as I could be with my time. So, a CRM, it won't solve all your problems, but for most people, it will help them keep on track, especially with prioritizing, as the system can remind you what's the next thing to do on your to-do list. And it should definitely save you time when sending emails and creating invoices, that kind of thing. I am currently in the process of setting up a CRM, and it is killing me softly because I have so many weddings to put in. I really wish that I had done this task a few years ago before my business, exploded and got so big. In the grand scheme of things, they're not really that expensive, actually, just a few $100s a year. Personally, I think it can be challenging if you try to set it up too soon in your business. That can be a trap as well, because you still need to design how you want to do things, and then you use those ideas to set up the CRM. So if you don't know how you want to run your business, or more specifically your client journey, it's not going to tell you. So I just would warn that setting it up too early can also be problematic, but definitely don't wait as long as I did. I can't tell you exactly when to do it, but I will say I think you should put it on your medium-term to-do list and make sure you revisit the idea of a CRM after, for example, your first 20 weddings or your first year in business. And by that point, you should have a fairly good idea of your process and whether a CRM is going to benefit you. Number 7. It's a mistake to think that you have to write every ceremony from scratch. So this may come as a surprise, but you honestly do not have to write every ceremony from scratch. Now, even if you want to market yourself as a celebrant who writes highly personalized ceremonies, it's still okay to work from a template. If the couple are answering a love story questionnaire, then it's still personalized because their story is unique, of course. As a celebrant, you should have both writing and presenting skills. And I encourage you over the course of your career to continually invest time and energy and money in developing both those skills. But even the best celebrants, the ones who are clearly wordsmiths, are probably, even they are probably still reusing some content, because to be honest, it just makes sense from a business perspective. As you develop as a celebrant, you should be looking for ways to make your processes more time efficient, and developing script templates. It's just smart. This does not make you a fraud or a bad celebrant. Just to be clear, I personally am against inserting 2 names into a fully written script, but there is no rule that says that you can't do it. And there are celebrants that do the copy paste thing. And if that's their business model, and then it's not really for us to judge them. So try not to get on your high horse about it. But let's work on the basis that you do want to write personalized ceremonies for all of your couples. Okay, so you can still develop some standard paragraphs. A lot of what we do during the ceremony is like good linking and good segues into the next section of the ceremony. So if you write a great opening paragraph, or a great closing paragraph, or a great introduction to the exchange of rings, then you're going to want to use that again and again. And that's okay, especially if you've tried and tested those words and know that they land well with the guests. If you've written some great words about love and marriage, then, it's going to be difficult to top that and write new material over and over again for every single ceremony. So, in fact, these paragraphs they actually end up being incredibly useful because you can actually deliver them with absolute confidence, knowing that they're going to land, and that you can actually, look up from your folder or your Kindle or your iPad, whatever you're using. You can actually look up and deliver them from memory. And then that makes it so much easier to connect with the crowd in those moments. So my advice is, don't be lazy. I think you should still develop 3 ways of saying everything: a super informal way for a very relaxed crowd, a more formal way for a more proper crowd, and maybe something in the middle. And then once you've done that, I want you to do it all again in the same tone of voice, but test your skills by using different words. By doing this, you should build up a bank of paragraphs that you can insert or copy paste as required, depending on the vibe of the ceremony and the clients that you're working with. Even the love story that comes from the questionnaire can be based on a set structure. So for me, every answer in the questionnaire creates its own unique paragraph in the love story in the ceremony. So it doesn't matter how you want to piece it together, but it's beneficial to start writing each draft knowing more or less the structure and the order of things. You need you need to be savvy, though. I'm going to add in a caveat here. You need to be savvy. If you have 2 couples who know each other and they both book you within a short space of time, or their weddings are in a short space of time, then of course, try not to repeat yourself too much. Maybe refer back to the previous script when you're writing the next one, but don't overthink it, okay? Your writing style, it's going to evolve over time. Every year, I want you to push yourself to delete or at least tweak some of your standard paragraphs, and you're going to be fine. In case you're worried that the photographers either won't notice or won't care if you repeat yourself a little in the different ceremonies, honestly, all they care about is if you can get the crowd to have big reactions for them to photograph. And the same goes for the guests. For the most part, the guests will remember how you made them feel rather than the exact words. So trust me on this one. Take a common sense approach, and don't berate yourself. Don't berate yourself. We all do a little bit of copy pasting. Number 8, we're getting through it. Another mistake is being too scared to show your face on socials or use video. So are you terrified of posting about yourself or pressing the record button? I'm sure you know this, but it's worth stating again. As a celebrant, you are your brand. It's true that most clients want to know the owners behind the brand, but this is especially true for celebrants. So there is no point in hiding. Track your analytics if you don't believe me, but over time, the data is going to show that your followers love hearing more about you. So for your business's sake, don't shy away from putting yourself in front and center in your social media. Yeah, you might stumble over your words or mess up, but with practice, speaking to the camera and putting your message out there will become better over time. The important thing is to keep going, even if you don't get the engagement or the reaction that you wanted, immediately. And remember, you don't have to be polished for people to connect with you, because I think, now more than ever, people are wanting to connect with down-to-earth and real people. Try not to compare yourself to others. There's always some celebrant doing it better than you on social media, but please don't let that stop you trying. You may have seen someone you look up to on social media share a piece of content that they did, and you want your content to be just as good, if not better. The thing is, though, your content, it doesn't or shouldn't be like anyone else's, because you want it to be about your business, your values, your mission, and your impact. If you're an introvert especially, we tend to look at other people's social media and those that show up on video in a really kind of polished or bubbly or energized way. And we can often like internalize that, and it holds us back because we want to match their energy, but we can't. I just want to remind you that you don't have to, you just have to be yourself. It is enough. You know, if you truly are yourself and you're comfortable with being yourself, and you do that instead of trying to be someone else, you know, trying to be someone more outgoing or someone funnier, you know, people are going to resonate more because they can just tell when you're putting on a fake front, or, you know, if you're not truly comfortable with yourself on social media. So don't be afraid to share your awkwardness or your quirkiness, because, you know, if that's genuinely who you are, then your audience will connect with that more. Number 9. We're nearly there. Okay. A big mistake is not setting boundaries around your working hours and holidays. So it's so important to have clear boundaries with your couples. So this could include, you know, establishing office hours, and particularly expectations around meetings and communication, and really getting clear about what your client can expect when they're working with you. You know, I won't tell you what your hours should be. You know, you need to figure out for yourself what's going to work for you and your lifestyle and your family, etc. But I will say that no one should have to work 7 days a week. Okay. Personally, I promised my husband that I won't work on Sundays. You know, for me, that means turning down baby namings, no meetings, but also no posting to social media, no responding to emails, nothing. A total break from work. It's very important. You know, most of my couples are professionals, so they work during the week, and that means that you know, I wanted to meet them during the day, but it didn't really suit them. So I used to offer meetings any night of the week and on Saturday mornings before my weddings. And I thought that this was the definition of customer service. You know, but now that I've had a baby, I only have meetings on Monday and Tuesday nights. And guess what? Nothing has really changed in terms of my standards. Which just proves that I should have done it a long time ago. You know, my little bit of advice is to consider an app like Calendly, where you can set available appointment times. That way you can save time with all the back and forth emails. And you also, it's easier for people like myself. You know, I don't have to say no, because it's not a conversation. There's just only certain time slots available, and people always fit in with those. I want you to figure out what's a reasonable response time to emails. So when you get an inquiry, I understand, especially when you're a new celebrant, you know, the urge to jump immediately. You know, I used to be out on a walk with my husband, and you know, I'd get an inquiry on my phone and I'd say, oh, we better get home, you know, or can we just stop for a minute so I can respond from my phone? Madness, total madness. You know, the chance of you losing a job because you haven't responded to an email in 5 minutes is very slim. Look, now if I get an email on a Saturday, I don't respond until the Monday morning, you know. And also, if it might be useful to also differentiate between, you know, there's a difference between potential clients and clients that have already booked you. So have a think about that. And also now I set the expectation in my onboarding email, explaining that I normally respond in 2 to 3 days. And because I've set that expectation and my clients know, I don't have any issues. And my husband's a lot happier. You have to be organized with your holidays, because marrying couples are super duper organized. You know, as you know, we can take bookings probably sometimes up to 2 years in advance. So you have to take charge of your calendar and block out any holidays or the other important days, like, for example, your partner's birthday or your kid's birthday or that family trip away or whatever it is, you know, and you need to block that out in your calendar before you inadvertently take a booking. Same goes for public holidays. My advice to you is try not to work when you're actually on holidays. You know, a vacation should mean relaxing and unplugging from your business. And okay, if it's not possible to completely shut off, then please set some holiday work boundaries. For example, just doing an hour in the evening to check emails, or an hour first thing in the morning, so that you can enjoy the rest of your day. So my advice is plan ahead, schedule your vacations, 3 to 6 months in advance if you can, so you'll have plenty of time to prepare. Realize that there is no perfect time to take a break. Depending on where you live, you might have high season and low season, or like us in Newcastle, we kind of work all year round. We're very lucky. But if possible, try and take a vacation when you're not as busy in your business. Notify your clients in advance. Problems arise when clients expect you to be around and you're not. But if you tell them well in advance and remind them shortly before you leave, and you could post about it on social media, you shouldn't have any trouble. And of course, set up an out of office auto email responder and voicemail, and think about automating your social media posts. Now, I know all that is easier said than done, but this is a really important point. I think we all have a responsibility to educate our clients and our other wedding colleagues that basically everybody should want their wedding vendors to be well rested, energized, and feeling creative, not depleted. So that's in everyone's interest, so that you can give your best and avoid burnout, and avoid any resentment in your client relationships. So personally, I'm trying to reframe. No more feelings of guilt for taking time off. It's good for me, and ultimately it's good for my clients too. Number 10. I'm going to take a sip of water. Whew. Number 10, a very big mistake that lots of celebrants make is not prioritizing your self-care. So you must look after your wellness and your mental health in order to stay productive and creative in your business. You are your company's biggest asset, and working harder is not always the answer. So it's very important to set working hours, schedule days off, and take enough holidays in order to revive and refresh your mind. Because most of us genuinely love what we do, we are willing to work more than the average 40 hours a week, which is fine, but without realizing it, it's easy to become a slave to the business. Personally, when my life and my business gets really busy, my natural tendency is to speed up and work harder and try and stay ahead. But paradoxically, that's normally the exact time when I need to slow down and look after myself. So it's important to know that there will always be a to-do list. It actually never ends. Once you tick one thing off, then something else will wiggle its way onto the list, and so on and so on. So firstly, you need to get comfortable with the idea and accept it. Self-care involves saying no sometimes, and it involves saying enough at other times, and it involves saying not right now at other times. So don't fall into the trap of thinking I'll be happy when I get a website, when I get 50 bookings, when I've done my first reel, or whatever it is. Remember to enjoy the journey. After all, our job is basically celebrating life's milestones with other people. So, you must remember to celebrate your own business milestones along the way too. So that's it. These are the things I wish I knew when I first became a celebrant. If I've stated the obvious with some of these things, I'm really sorry for wasting your time, but well done you for already being one step ahead. But hopefully you did get something out of it. Obviously this is just an overview. You're going to have to dive a lot deeper into a lot of these topics in order to avoid making these mistakes. I've tried to point you in the right direction, but I totally get it. Some people learn their lessons by making their mistakes themselves. So don't feel bad that if you still fall into these traps, even though you know about them, but if that happens, please do send me a message in a few months or a year or next year or whatever, telling me that you wish you'd taken my advice after all, and we can have a good chuckle about how you are no longer a newbie celebrant, and how the next round of celebrants, are biting at our heels. Sending love. Bye, 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 bye.